We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday. Our guest is Lisa Hallum. She is with the Tennessee Valley VA healthcare system and it focuses on domestic violence. Good to have you on this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. And the phone line's open, 737-7587. I know it's kind of a heavy topic, but if you have a question about domestic violence, dealing it or the like, we talk about that on this program at least once or twice a month because it's an important topic. And one reason for that is the need. And I know, among other things, you have some of the numbers. The VA itself now has something that they've focused in on since 2019, but that's probably partially because there is a problem. What are the numbers like, say, in Davidson and Rutherford County from your perspective?
Yes, the data from Davidson County is in 2021. There were 9,321 domestic violence victims.
Okay.
And I just want to note that there were 2,450 children who were present in the domestic violence incident.
Okay, and these are all cases that have been reported.
Yes.
Would you imagine there's some that aren't?
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot more.
Right. A lot of people say there may be more that are not being reported than have. 9,000 is way too many. That's a lot.
Yes.
And you mentioned the children's component. So let's just be clear on this. These are children that maybe themselves were not experiencing the abuse, but were witnessing it. Which,
they could have been involved, like a parent could have been holding the child and been involved in physical violence with their partner, or the child just witnessed it. So it could be either one in that number.
The child can be beaten too, though, right? I mean, they can be the victims of it as well.
Exactly.
And that's child abuse. Okay. What about Rutherford County, where VA's?
Okay. Rutherford County, in 2019, there were 3,994 domestic violence victims and 161 sexual assault victims.
Okay. And those numbers, I guess, are coming through law enforcement or something along those lines.
They are coming from law enforcement.
And a lot of the cases that you get are referred to you. And for the VA, you said maybe a dozen cases a month maybe come across that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I think it's going to grow, though.
Sure.
Because we're doing a lot of education.
You get the word out, do programs like this.
With the VA staff and also education, for veterans.
Yeah.
So that everyone understands that we're there and we're available. So I think that number is going to grow a great deal.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be getting a lot more referrals because we're going to be expanding our services. And I just want to mention we do have 3 social workers that work in the program.
Okay.
Kirby Anderson is a coordinator. And we also have Dr. Tanya Hardaway, who is the Megabus lead. And I'll explain Megabus in just a minute. And we also have a project manager, Dr. Mike Sullivan-Tibbs. So there's actually 4 of us that work in the program.
Yeah.
But it's going to grow.
Yeah.
We are working toward writing a proposal to try to get a chaplain hired at the VA so that they can help do more couples intervention through warrior to soulmate. That is another thing that we're going to be working on. And then we're also going to try to get another coordinator position this year. So we're going to be growing in the next 2 years.
Is this something happening at VAs across the country, VA facilities? I mean, it's a federal program, and I'm guessing, if you've been by, if you drive by the facility there in Murfreesboro, it is huge.
It is. It looks like a college campus.
It really does. That's exactly what it looks like. It's giant, and it's great. But I mean, it's very large, and there's a lot of VA facilities like that across the country. And so this focus is happening. I mean, there's someone like you at a VA facility, in Kentucky, or is that what we're seeing?
We have a congressional program going on right now. It's called the Megabus Act 5304.
Okay, and talk about that.
So the Tennessee Valley has been chosen as one of the 10 pilot sites for that program, and the whole focus is identifying gaps and barriers to care and services for those experiencing intimate partner violence and sexual assault. And it gives us an opportunity, after we identify those gaps and barriers, to have the funding to increase our intervention services. And so what we're planning on doing is starting a courage group for women who have experienced sexual assault any time in their life, in childhood, military, outside the military. And then also the couple safety planning we're going to be starting. And we're going to be starting another couples group, Strength at Home couples, this year. And we're going to be expanding our users groups, Strength at Home users groups. And we also already have a Courage men's group at the VA that behavioral health is already running.
So what's the biggest gaps and barriers? Okay, maybe not Gary, but the biggest barrier to them seeking help, is it they're embarrassed, they don't want to, they don't know how, shame? What is it, you think?
One gap that we've noticed is not enough screening. So one thing that we educate about is the relationship health and safety screening.
So when does that happen? When they come back from their overseas service?
Actually, as a veteran, it is a required screening that has to be done once a year. It's a clinical reminder that, so if a veteran goes into primary care and they see the nurse can see that in their record that they need to have a relationship health and safety screening.
Oh, wait, that happens right now for every veteran?
Yes, it's happening now.
Wait, so wait, for
and
every veteran.
screenings are increasing.
So this is the veteran who may no longer be in the service, but is a veteran and still receiving benefits from the VA. They go in on a yearly basis for their physical, whatever, everything's peachy. But because they're veterans who have served, whether they were in combat or overseas or here, stateside, they still they go through a screening for their relation. Like,
yes.
What kind of questions are on
Well, we ask if there's been any type of physical violence.
And of course they're going to say no.
So there's a primary screening.
Would they be honest with you?
Well, we hope they will.
Okay.
And so it's basically, research has shown that if you do a screening with someone, they're going to be 3 times more likely to accept help.
Okay, and they may not come completely clean, but they may say, well, we have had some problems.
Right.
And then that's the beginning of it, then,
so
maybe, where you can get help. Yeah.
Yes, the lower level intimate partner violence, such as screaming, insulting, making demeaning comments, any pushing or slapping going on. And then we ask in the secondary screening if there's been any strangulation or weapons or threats made. And so if they are positive on that, then the nurse can refer the veteran to an intimate partner violence champion who have been trained, mental health providers that have been trained to do safety planning. And so we refer them immediately, same day, for safety planning if they need it, or they can be referred to the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program to do it at a later time, like the next day, if the veteran is not in immediate danger.
Is the partner approached at some point after that maybe they've come clean to some degree during that? How do you approach? And I know there's all kinds of HIPAA laws and everything else involved.
Yeah, it's really up to the experiencer.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they report,
then you have to say, do you mind if we reach out?
Exactly. And we also want to make sure that they're feeling safe when the screening is done. So we don't want to have older children, if they bring children to the appointment, we don't want to have older children present because they can tell the partner
so
about
this is all
the questions.
Confidential stuff,
So
obviously.
we want to make sure that they are safe, they're in a safe place when those questions are asked.
Okay.
In the beginning. So the nurses and the mental health providers are trained to make sure that those veterans are in a safe place before that screening is done.
Yeah, and the other part of it may be, again, you talk about how you do have some interaction with law enforcement. Now, that doesn't come up here. How does that play out usually it's law enforcement maybe that makes referrals or comes to you when they have a situation, right? Now,
it can.
Okay, and now certainly, the person may not want to come clean completely, worried that he or she might get in some legal trouble. But since it's HIPAA, you're not going to call the police on them. Let's be real clear on this, right?
Well, if an experiencer reports that their life has been threatened by their partner, or if a partner has brandished a weapon against them.
Well, if it's an experiencer, I understand why you would. I'm just saying the other, the one who's doing this, they're telling you maybe and being honest. That's different necessarily, right? You're not going to report them then, or
if they're requesting help.
Yes, right.
And they're willing to get help, and they're open to that, and they're willing to attend the group or get mental health treatment, then we're not required to report anything to the police. But if it's an experiencer reporting these things, then we are required to inform law enforcement in the area that they live. We do let the VA police know, but we also have to let the local police know where they reside.
Interesting. I didn't even think about that. The VA police. That's just the police force that is there at the facility? Right, that is present. They're there for security and the like?
So if we have any issues of violence on campus.
And there's people that live out there on campus, right? I mean, you have VA rooms out there, are there?
We have a residential treatment program for addiction and also PTSD.
Right.
And the veterans actually stay there for like maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's not a long period of time.
So there are some that do reside on the campus. There may be some employees that do at times. But yeah, the VA police are very important. And we also partner with the local police departments.
With Murfreesboro PD?
Yes, because if we have someone who comes to our emergency room, either in Nashville or Murfreesboro, reporting sexual assault or intimate partner violence, I've already made contact with the local police departments in Murfreesboro and Nashville, and they are willing to come to the emergency room and pick up the experiencer and take them to a local facility to get either a SANE exam. We don't call them rape kits anymore. It's the sexual assault nurse exam, which is a kit that's done on someone who's been sexually assaulted within 5 days. And I do want to mention the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Center in Murfreesboro. I just visited the other day.
Right.
It is an amazing community resource for those who have experienced intimate partner violence and sexual assault, because they provide victim advocacy services. They also help experiencers if they want to get an order of protection, if they're afraid of their partner. They accompany them to court. They provide counseling services. They have a domestic violence shelter, a safe shelter, and the Safe Center is where they go for the sexual assault nurse exam. And it is a really good supportive environment for experiencers rather than sending them to the emergency room for a SANE exam. So we are, the VA, in this megabus project, that is a big push that we're working toward in working with the emergency rooms to give those experiencers options. You don't have to just go to the emergency room for a SANE exam. You can go to the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Center, or you can go to the Sexual Assault Center in Nashville. Right. To get that and be surrounded by supportive services. And I just want to mention that the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Center is in great need of volunteers. They train volunteers to be victim advocates, and you don't have to have a degree. You just have to have a willing heart. And I just wanted to make that plug for them.
I think a lot of those places do need help and volunteers.
They do need volunteers.
And they're so important. But just keep in mind what you just said. I mean, because when you mentioned that to me, I'm like, well, that's something I would like to do. But I mean, I have no training in this. They are going to train you on this. They're not going to put you in some situation. But you might be answering phones, or when you say a victim's advocate, you would be doing what? Actually, providing after-hour support to an experiencer. Like talking to them on the phone, or what? Actually, no, being with them. Oh, being with them. Being present. So if they come to the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Center, they would actually be there to like hold their hand. You know, if they want it, and just be present with them if they want it. And then also, if they have to go to the emergency room for the SANE exam, they will accompany them to the emergency room and be there with them the entire time. So these volunteers are invaluable. You imagine they'll be open to male volunteers as well? Oh, yes. Male and female volunteers. I think so, yes. Glad you mentioned that. And we'll come back and touch a little bit on the YWCA. More to count on this as well, because YW does a lot as well on that front. We'll take a break, be back with more Talking Domestic Violence right after this. Stay with us.